Alright, so we got guzzling bear fat, the huge black market trade in honey, and a pretty solid case of why John Kellogg might actually be the serial killer Jack the Ripper. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Justin here, and I'm at a slightly different position on the shelves. I just figured I'd give everyone a new little background and how I have quite a few more books than just the ones over there. But in this video, what we're going to be doing is doing a book review. Like I said, I'm going to be trying to bring a lot more book reviews back to the channel. We got The Secret History of Food, Strange but True Stories About the Origins of Everything We Eat, by Matt Siegel. And this was sent to me by Ecco Publishing, so I do apologize. It's been 10,000 years before I ended up actually reviewing it, but better late than never, I suppose. But yeah, it's not too often that a nonfiction book actually makes me laugh out loud, like no joke. This has got to be in my top 5 I guess most humorous nonfiction books of all time, right up there with like Mary Roach. If you're familiar with her with her works and stuff, it's definitely at that caliber. Just really enjoyable, really easy to read. Highly recommend it just right off the bat. Just, you know, starting off on like the positives and stuff like I always do. But the secret sauce here of this book is that it focuses a lot on primary sources because they are so wacky. They are so just like outlandish and weird, but they're actual quotes taken from people. And they just work so well. Sometimes there might be a little bit too many quotes, primary sources used, but it is so ridiculous, kind of like what's going on. Like, for example, I was talking about one of the early colonists drinking bear fat, you know, just to prove, like, how manly the colonists are and how North America is just so much better than the old world. You know, kind of in the same vein, I love those, like, opening chapters with the colonists and the pilgrims and whatnot, just because I live in New England and everything. And there was a war between pie on you know, the New World and the Old World, and apparently, yeah, old medieval early modern pies in England were pretty gross, like using like actual like blood and bones and stuff to like congeal the crust. You just kind of threw the crust away, like you didn't really eat it. It was just kind of like the plate of the time. Real nasty stuff. But I I put some stickies in for some of the quotes just to kind of get over how like crazy it is. But basically, there was a journalist war for like a couple of generations there, where people in England were making fun of Americans and the New World for eating pie so often, and how it was just making them bad, and you know, it just went to go back and forth. All right, let's see. Here we go. Let me just read you a couple. I'm going to actually read a few quotes from this book because it's just so ridiculous. Meanwhile, the English continue to eat beans on toast for breakfast, stuff their pies with pigeon blood, and in general treat pie like a second-class citizen. And while American doctors and journals hailed pie as a cure-all and the elixir of life, the English condemned it as a social disease, declaring, "The present civil strife in America is to be looked upon as a hideous nightmare, produced by half a century's indulgence of an unhallowed appetite for pie." Again, this is from a medical journal. In 1865, British journalist George Augustus Sala wrote in his Diary of America that the real social curse of the Atlantic states is pie, and that an unholy appetite for pie works untold woes, and that the pie fiend reigns supreme. The sallow faces, the shrunken forms, the sunken eyes, the morose looks, the tetchy temperament of the Northerners are attributable not half so much to ice water, candy, beefsteak, tight-lacing, or tobacco chewing, as to the unbridled indulgence in pie. And he went on like this for 4 pages, later accusing American girls of taking pies to bed with them. The bastard. So you got stuff like that, just throw, like, literally every other page is just filled with like crazy, I don't want to say nonsense because they are literal primary sources and stuff, but it's just so ridiculous, so outlandish. I know, I just had a really good time reading it. Just for example, and like another one, just in this chapter alone, you know, John Smith from Pocahontas infamy is quoted as, when they're talking about how abundant, you know, the life and the fish and the deer and everything are in the New World, how they were trying to catch them with frying pans, and they were just like unsuccessful. And it's just so, like I said, it's just so ridiculous. There are a couple of the subtitle's a little bit misleading, like Strange but True Stories About the Origins of Everything We Eat. It's really actually focusing in on just a couple things. Like I said, kind of the first one is sort of pies in just kind of early New England, early kind of colonial America. But honey has a really good chapter. Ice cream has a good chapter. Vanilla has a chapter. And then he does a couple, corn has a really good chapter as well. And it some of them do take a little bit more of a serious turn. I'll get back to the corn one in just a second here. But he also has a few chapters on more like themes, like the opening chapters about the kind of the progress we've had in like cooking and chewing and swallowing food, and like kind of the different advances that have kind of gone on there. But definitely with a humorous slant for sure. There's one on like, for example, why we eat spicy food and hurt ourselves with spice, even though like spice has basically evolved to like make mammals, like deter mammals from like eating the seeds of those fruits and whatnot. So it's definitely not on everything. It's just kind of a selection where I think he found the best kind of crazy stuff. For example, on cereal, learning about how just absolutely insane what Sylvester Graham and John Kellogg were, and the whole like kind of invention of cereal and graham crackers and that kind of like whole vein of things. Like, it's pretty weird. Like, I can't even like read some of it. It's so just graphic and just scary and stuff. You got like doomsday cults and weird preaching, and then kind of culty stuff, and then his whole Mill Creek or Battle Creek thing in Michigan. You'll have to look it up yourselves and stuff, or read this book. It's just too crazy. But there is some like kind of serious stuff in there, kind of thrown in as well. For example, how the USDA kind of sucks because it's kind of there supposedly to help American consumers make better food choices or whatever. But it kind of goes into how nutritional labels are not necessarily pointless, but they're pretty misleading and just really not all that helpful. But how like the USDA is tasked with helping Americans like with healthy foods and whatever, but also propping up all these different food industries at the same time, and how their like standards literally like make no sense, and they just reverse like all their policies and everything like that. But he kind of also defends them in saying like on a few things like when they're like testing and things like that, they don't have like any employees to actually go do most of this stuff. But anyways, like before I ramble on a little bit too long, let's go ahead into like one of the things on corn. And he kind of talks about how everything has corn, like the whole food, like more than just the food industry. Half like the industry in like the world right now is like based on like corn byproduct and stuff. Let's just read a couple quotes here. Let's see. In fact, the average American consumes about 3 pounds of food containing corn or corn products every day, often unknowingly. Eat an apple and you're eating corn and a layer of food-grade wax. Man, if I could read. Food-grade wax that's sprayed onto apples to make them look pretty and prevent them from drying out. Eat a cheeseburger. There's a good chance you're eating corn feed in the beef and cheese. Corn flour in the bun, corn syrup in the ketchup and pickles, corn-based ethylene gas in the tomatoes, corn-based dextrose in the salt. If the meat was frozen, cornstarch in the coating that protects it from freeze burn. Not to mention probably a slew of corn-based binders, emulsifiers, colorants, flavorings, sweeteners, preservatives, anticoagulants, hair removal agents, And then he's talking about like the whole Taco Bell incident where they basically said, their hamburger was only 88% meat. That's a side track that you should look into as well. And kind of go over, and still, human consumption only accounts for around 10% of the corn supply, as it's also industrial ingredient in basically everything. Adhesives, antibiotics, aspirin, ceiling tiles, chalk, cork, cosmetic crayons, disinfectants, dry cell batteries, engine fuel, fireworks, inks, plastics, rubber tires, soap, wallpaper glue, probably in the paper and adhesive binding of this book. And if you ordered that cheeseburger earlier to go, corn was in the packaging too, as well in the paper and ink of your receipt. If you cooked at home in a grill, corn was on the charcoal briquettes, blah, blah, blah. And, it just goes on and on and on. So you definitely still, even though the book is told with a huge, like, humorous slant, there's just jokes and dry wit and humor just thrown everywhere, and then really funny like primary sources and stuff. You still learn a ton as you're reading, which that's kind of like the primary thing why I want to like learn about it as well. But like I said, just super highly recommended for sure. I will say the one big negative that I have with the book, like a small negative, was there might be a little over usage of primary sources, but I'm going to give that a pass because the quality and data mining the author did to find some of these ones must have taken a while, but he definitely picked out a bunch of gems there for us to like read about. I will say there's not really like an ending, if that makes sense. Like We're kind of like reading all these chapters, and they all have kind of like a different theme and whatnot, but there isn't really an ending epilogue or final chapter to sort of tie it all together. I think we're talking about like the USDA, and also I think there was like a chapter right before on like the psychology of food choice, and you know, when you have too many decisions like at the grocery store, why that's actually bad and how it's screwing things up and whatnot. But there's, like I said, there's not really just anything to kind of tie a string around everything, and I don't know, just to kind of finish it all off in like kind of a nice way. I don't really know how to explain it. It just kind of, like I said, you kind of read the last chapter, and then if I didn't know it was like the last chapter, it didn't feel like the ending of a book. But other than that, like I said, you'll learn a ton. You'll probably actually laugh a lot. And this is definitely going to be in my top 5 for humorous nonfiction. And I definitely encourage you all to check it out as well. If this sounds even, I don't think you'll be disappointed. Like I said, if you like humor and you like dry wit and you like, I guess not even dry wit, like some of them are just like, they're just so crazy. I don't even know how to explain half of them. But if you like learning about the food you eat, if you don't want to know about the food you eat, because some of it is really, really, really sketchy, don't pick this one up. But yeah, definitely, like I said, I don't think you'll be disappointed. I really enjoyed it, and I think you will too. So there you have it. That was The Secret History of Food by Matt Siegel. Let me know what you think, and if you think you would enjoy a book like this, and if you've read a good book on somehow like related to food or agriculture, let me know down below. I'm starting to branch out into a couple different like subgenres and stuff, so I'm on the lookout for good recs on those themes as well. But there, thank you so much for watching. You can like, comment, subscribe. Definitely check out the Etsy shop. I forgot to put a sign up because I don't actually have a good spot to put it right unless I move some of my books, if you've seen my other videos. But anyways, whether you're reading a book on food or not, always remember, read victoriously.